Everyone. This is an experiment on a few different levels. I'm here in a small village in Bulgaria that's known as Little Jerusalem because of the people in this village have taken a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and so they named this village after Jerusalem, including Zlatka's grandparents. So that's one part of the experiment. The second part, I'm also dual live streaming on my Instagram, as you can see if you're on Instagram. And also, this is going to be uploaded to Unspeakable Bliss, my podcast, which can be found on Apple and Google Play and all of the places where we listen to podcasts. So, this is the first time that I've done a podcast, I believe, since the pilgrimage pre-pilgrimage podcast with Mila and Slatka, and I've been contemplating the topic that I'll be sharing about. And this is very full circle for me. So I titled this, at least on Instagram, All for One, One for All, Healing Collective Trauma by Doing My Own Work. And I'll start by saying that the title itself, All for One, One for All, it is the tagline to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think it still is too, and that's my hometown. And I find that there's a deep meaning that I will be talking about here in the podcast around all for one and one for all. But also, as you might see, I'm surrounded by this beautiful grapevine. And it's so, I'll say, auspicious because when I was a little boy growing up in the suburbs of Cleveland, my next door neighbor, Giovanni DeFranco, it doesn't get more Italian than that. He had a grapevine just like this. And so I remember the first time I visited Bulgaria 5 years ago with Sladka, and I arrived here in her grandparents' village and I saw this grapevine. I just thought, wow. I traveled all this way to this country that I knew very little about other than the geography class that I took of finding out where Bulgaria is. And it smells just like my childhood because it reminded me of the grapevine in my neighbor's yard in Giovanni DeFranco's backyard. So talk about full circle. And that's related to what I'm going to be sharing here today as well. So I've been having sessions and just generally conversations with loved ones, friends, family, and those on the pilgrimage. And my friend Michael, who I met with, who's also from Costa Rica, but he's visiting his beloved Lazarina here too. And we've been talking about this idea, but also having experiences through different, I'll just say, modalities of what it means to heal collective trauma by doing our own work that's presented to us. So there's a few tenets that I will set forth, and I want to speak from the conceptual plane, but also my intention with sharing this is that there's an experiential invitation available as well. So as I'm sharing some of these things, the invitation is to see how or if this is true for you in your own life and with your own experience, and maybe even in the direct experience of hearing this whenever it is that you hear this. So, and also for live stream, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in Bulgaria. It's pretty much the middle of the night for most of you, so I'm not anticipating too much of the live engagement. However, open to that if anyone wants to comment, ask a question, or anything else. So, the universe, the all that is, some people call it God, I call it God, I call it the universe, reality. It is all connected. This is probably obvious to you, but it's also experiential, at least in the traditions that I am familiar with and have experience training in. There is a still point, also known as consciousness or the self, that there's no edge to. And not only is there not an edge to, but there's no separation. And I want to define that a little more clearly. Of course, there's a separation between me and my phone screen and my laptop here and my coffee cup. Otherwise, if I didn't perceive the qualitative separateness, I might pour this coffee all over my laptop or not know where the play button is for this video, and that wouldn't be good. So although we are made of the same fundamental matter, energy, which most of that is invisible and mysterious even to scientists, although that is true, there's still qualitative differences. And I'm putting my hands together because I can feel that, of course. When I put my hands together, both my hands aren't one hand. Hence the title All for One, One for All. As in, here's the example that I want to give. If there's no edge to the universe, and if we are all interconnected, well, that also means that we're interconnected by our ancestral lines. I'm connected to my parents, my grandparents, and so on and so forth until not sure what that first person or however that exactly looks. But the point is, it's all interconnected, even through my DNA, upward and downward to my descendants as well, my ancestors and my descendants. And then, of course, the interconnected field of our shared experience of all the people that are alive right now. Now, having said that, let's say, for example, I'll use myself as an example. Let's say I had aunts, uncles, I'll speak to the male side of this first, that were in wars. And I have had that. I have had people in my family that have fought in wars, just not my father, but both of my grandfathers served, and some of my uncles did. And no surprise to probably anyone, if someone is in a war, that can be a traumatizing experience. And so let's say that there was some unresolved trauma that one of my ancestors faced from being part of a war. This is not even including my own personal challenges, traumas, I could say. I'm just speaking from the ancestral line right now. And then let's say that through me, that gets passed down through our DNA, and then I am having outbursts, angry outbursts at my partner, at Zlatko, which few and far between, but sometimes there will be something that comes out in a jagged way, or a way that I forget all the spiritual teachings and how we're all connected. Well, if I can, and I don't think there's anything even necessarily wrong with anger, by the way. I think there's healthy expressions of anger, and there's an appropriate time and place for that. But let's say I'm aware that there's something unresolved for me. There's something for me to look at, or a part is active. I speak a lot of the times in parts work, which comes from IFS, internal family systems, where there's these different kind of fragmented parts of us, and then there's the self, the whole healed self or consciousness or the universe that has been a witness to it all. Well, if one of those parts becomes activated and I'm reacting, if I look at that and I'm present to it and I'm giving my presence from that self energy, I have an opportunity to heal that for myself. And I don't even necessarily need to know that it's connected to one of my grandfathers or great, 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 who knows how far back, related to some trauma that they experienced. But it is connected. It absolutely is connected. And this goes to the tenet that I set out at the beginning of, near the beginning of this video, where if everything is connected, which it is, if one part of that system, let's say one human being, myself in this example, or take it on the biological level, if one cell becomes healed, then that has an effect. And this is not, by the way, this is not just some theoretical, spiritual, non-applicable thing. I'm even talking on the scientific level. If I heal that for myself, or if that single cell is healed, that affects the entire organism, culture, society, family, universe in which that cell or that human being is nested. The dogs and the chickens agree, clearly. And that's really all I wanted to share in this this upload, this podcast today, which is that if everything's connected, because it is, I don't even verse theories that there's multiple universes. Well, the point is it's still contained. I mean, by definition, the universe, God's self-consciousness, by the definition that I ascribe to it and how I understand it and relate with it, there's nothing outside of that. It is the all that exists. And if I'm doing my part in looking at the things that I need to look at through different practices, through IFS, through meditation, then that's all that I can do. And this is not to say that, see, this podcast was partly inspired by the post and email that I sent out recently about meditation. If I feel called to, for example, make this podcast and share this, or when I'm walking down the street and I see a piece of garbage, pick up that garbage. The inner is the outer, because it's all interconnected, all for one, one for all. And see if there's anything more here that I'd like to share on this. And if not, if I'm not doing that healing work, if I'm not being present to the things that life continues to show me over and over and over and over again, and I'm, let's say, dissociating, checking out, in denial, if I'm not acting from a place of truth, from reality, from my own experience, then that is just going to be proliferated or passed down. So I know I'm seeing this in a lot of the different relationships that I have, friends, family, my lover, myself. I'm seeing a ripened opportunity right now, and maybe I'll always be saying that because it's always right now, and maybe the energy is just building towards this, but I'm seeing this in the conversations that I'm having, and also, again, in my own experience. If I'm not going to do this now, when am I going to do it? And if I'm not doing it now, then it just keeps allowing that energy to build, and then it could potentially be passed around in the current society, current culture, current relationships, and potentially to descendants that I may have, or, for example, my nephews. So I suppose my invitation is the same that it was in the little writing and email that I sent out, to follow the curiosities, to tune in and listen to oneself for what it is that your heart genuinely desires for you to most follow. Because if I'm not doing that, I don't really understand what the purpose of being on this rock hurtling through space is. If I'm not honest with myself. And I know this might seem like really serious, and I believe that this can be totally, well, it includes all the different qualities. So it can be very sincere. And it can also be incredibly lighthearted and joyful when I'm tuning into what most inspires me to share, to give my life force energy to. And I do feel that I know that that's different for everyone. It's not going to manifest the same way. That'd be boring. We're all the same. So if you want to dive in further to experiences on this, uh, practices on this, working one-on-one on this, feel free to send me a message and we can discuss what that looks like. And I think that's all I got for now. So enjoy your day, wherever you are, your night, your evening, whatever time it is for you. And next podcast will be featuring Zlatka, and we'll be recapping and talking about our pilgrimage that we've been on for the past 10 days. So if the opportunity is present for you and this is a wake up call, well, I'm grateful to inspire that. And if there's a need for support or you have any questions about anything that I've talked about here, feel free to comment or send me a message, and I'm happy to talk about that with you as well. All right, my friends, remember who you are. Enjoy the ride. I'll see you soon. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.